Hello, welcome back to High Class. My name is Leshan, and in this video, the big question is how do you handle questions on poetry? That is in KCSE English Paper 2, question number 3. Now, for you to score good marks in this section, two things that you must understand clearly are the following. Number one, what are the elements that make up a poem? That is important because they translate into the questions that are usually tested in this section. And number two, you must understand how you should write your answers correctly and fully for you to score the full marks in each question. So that is what we're going to look at in this video. And here on the board, I've listed some of the elements or the areas that are usually tested under poetry. And they include number one, the title, the poet, the persona, the subject matter, we have the styles of poetic devices, we have the themes, attitude, mood, and tone, character trait, we have grammar, we have content, and we have this question that tests on meaning of words or lines uh, as used in the poem. So we're going to look at each of them, their definition, and later on we are going to sample 3 poems so that we try and answer this question based on those 3 poems. Okay, so starting with the first one, that is the title. The title is basically the name of the poem. Okay, once the poet writes that poem, he or she gives it a heading. That heading is what we are calling the title. And the title sometimes can be directly related to the content, sometimes can be ironical, sarcastic, or symbolic. And the title usually appears before the first stanza. Before the first stanza, the title is usually there. Number two, we have the poet. The poet is the person who writes the poem. The person who writes the poem is called the poet. And they usually appear after the last stanza by, the name usually there by someone. The name is usually there. That is the poet. Number three is the persona. The persona, this is the voice speaking in the poem, the speaker in the poem. Most of people usually confuse the poet and the persona, and these are two different things. So when the poet is writing a poem, he or she chooses a voice, a speaker that will speak on his or her behalf. Okay, now that voice that speaks in the poem is what we call the persona. Okay. Number four, we have the subject matter. I've just written here about because the question usually states, what is the poem about? 3 marks there. So the subject matter is basically a summary of what is in the poem from stanza 1 up to the last stanza. If you can summarize the events that are happening in the poem. That gives you the subject matter. What is the poem talking about? It's like the summary of what the poem entails. That is from the stanza 1 up to the last stanza. Now, number 5 is the styles of poetic devices. These are simply the tools that the poet uses to convey meaning. How the poet uses language creatively, manipulates the language to convey the meaning. Okay, and the styles can be into 2. We have the sound patterns, and also we have the figurative language. Now, figurative language entails things like irony, imagery, simile, metaphors, humor, sarcasm, all those. We talked about these in the excerpt section, that is question 2. And we also have the sound patterns that include the alliteration, consonants, assonance, and rhyme. Those are the sound patterns. So these are just tools that the poet uses to convey now the message. Number 6, we have the themes. These are now the messages, the life lessons, the central ideas the poet is trying to communicate to us, the readers. Okay, and we have the attitude, mood, and tone. This one we talked about also in the other video that we talked about the excerpt. We talked about these 3 things, and we say that they are different. And that's the attitude. Attitude is the feeling of the speaker or the persona towards the subject or the audience, whatever they are talking about. Okay, the feeling of the speaker or the persona towards whatever they are talking about, the subject matter or the people that they are talking about. That is the attitude. Then we talked about the mood. The mood, we say that this is the feeling or the atmosphere created in the reader by the text or by the poem in this case. Okay, and lastly, the tone. We talked about the nature of voice, the voice that the person that is the persona or the speaker will use when addressing a certain topic or a certain person. Okay, the nature of voice that will be used. Now we have character trait. Now these are simply the description of a person's personality, behavior, thoughts, or any other thing. So how someone behaves in that poem, for instance, their behavior, their thoughts, how they speak, and that we use descriptive words. Those are adjectives to describe the character traits. Second, then we have the grammar. Usually this is one question that tests you on grammar. For instance, they can tell you to write in plural, add a tag. They can tell you to punctuate correctly, rewrite, paraphrase, something like that. So usually a grammar question there. Another question that asks about content. Now this one, I test your understanding of the poem itself. They ask you a question like, for instance, what did this person do after here and here? So that is about content. You just have to read the poem and understand it, then you'll be able to get this answer. And lastly, usually this question that asks the meaning of words or lines in the poem, the meaning of words as used in the poem. So here we talked about the context. The context, you go back to where the word is, or the line is, try and read the words around it, either the line, the previous line, or the line that comes after, the words that are surrounding the line or the words in question. Try and find what's the best meaning I can derive from this word, but related to the poem. Okay, and of course, when we're talking about the meaning of lines, you can have the deep meaning and the surface meaning. So you choose which one you want to explore. So these are the elements. This is what I'm calling the elements, or some of the areas that they actually tested in poetry. Once you understand these elements, okay, you'll be in a position to handle any poem that comes your way. So in the next video, we're going to look at a sample. So we're going to sample 3 poems, and then we look at these elements in those 3 poems so that you understand better. Thank you.